Welcome to the 2024 Officer Onboarding Training, a mandatory step in the annual registration process for all incoming RSO presidents and finance officers. Please note, if you are not the incoming president or finance officer for your organization, you cannot complete this requirement for credit in the annual registration process. Please email us at engage@godtech.edu if you have any questions about this. Let's get started. Starting with introductions, my name is Alyssa Rodriguez, and I'm the coordinator for organizations in the Center for Student Engagement. My role in the center is all about supporting you all as registered student organizations, and I'm not alone in this work that I do. I actually do this alongside our Associate Director for the Center for Student Engagement, Kayla Watson. The goals of the session we're going to go over today are to teach you the basics of being an RSO leader at GT, to inform you of the resources available to your organization, to update you on the policies that you work within as an RSO, and 4, to provide clarity and guidance on your incoming RSO role. While we know this training is a mandatory requirement for you, the truth is we're all incoming officers here, and many of us have questions about how things work. This presentation is meant to have a back-to-basics approach about it, really just hoping to give you a quick crash course in all the things you need to know to be an effective RSO leader. Kayla and I couldn't do this alone either, as we are a part of an even bigger team that helps us do this work. So, although Kayla and I make up the student organizations team, we are actually a part of a bigger office called the Center for Student Engagement. The Center for Student Engagement is located on the third floor of the John Lewis Student Center and is home to 5 different areas of engagement on campus that you may have heard of. The first one is civic engagement, fraternity and sorority life, student media, the John Lewis Student Leadership Pathways, and student organizations. That's us. Now, along with our professional staff, we do also have a team of over 20 student assistants that you might have met. If you ever pop by our offices, these are the students that are greeting you at the door. They also assist us with things such as answering your emails, processing your annual registration forms, and maintaining the weekly digest. So if you ever have questions to ask, these are the people. Now, you can also always stay updated with the latest staff and contact information on our website at studentengagement.godtech.edu. Here, you'll find the entire office and all of our positions and contact information. Now that you've met the team and you know who to call and where to go for help, let's go ahead and get into today's agenda. Throughout today's webinar, we will be reviewing 4 different sections. First, Introduction Overview to AR. This is just getting settled with what this AR process actually is and what you can expect from it as a leader. I'm going to quickly show you how you can find help in completing these steps within the AR process and the AR timeline as a whole. Next, we're going to do a relevant policies overview, and I'm sure a recap for some of you, but in this overview, we actually have quite a few policies that impact the operations of RSOs, and we really want to make sure you know them because they could be helpful. Third, we're going to do a finance and events deep dive. In this section, we're going to go over all the helpful tips for successfully managing your RSO finances and hosting events, 2 of our most popular questions. And then 4, finally, we're going to end with some tips for tutorials and managing your organization throughout the year, including why you should be leveraging Engage. As you can see, we got a lot to get into, so let's go ahead and dive in. Introduction and overview. What is annual registration? Now, annual registration is an annual process that all registered student organizations are required to complete in order to remain active. Think of this as renewing your organization's contract with GT. Basically, this registration process provides us with all of the information that we need, and it tells us a few different things about your RSO. 1, annual registration tells us that you are still aware of your responsibilities and relationship as an organization with Georgia Tech, and that you're choosing to renew that relationship as an RSO. 2, annual registration ensures that you are informed on how to access the resources that are afforded to you as an RSO. As you all know, you do get some benefits that non-registered orgs don't, so we want to make sure you know how to access them. 3, your annual registration process will confirm that your organization is still in compliance with all of the Georgia Tech policies. For example, this process will confirm that you have an incoming president, finance officer, confirm that you have an advisor, and ensure that you update your Engage portal. All annual required processes for compliance. And then last but not least, for managing risk. When we get information to you from the beginning of your role, it allows us to be proactive in ensuring that every RSO knows exactly how to remain policy compliant and avoid any risk should it occur in the future. Another important reason to complete annual registration is because you needed to maintain these RSO benefits. So as you can see here, RSOs are entitled to several benefits such as being listed on Engage, reserving space for reduced costs, and on-campus funding and advertising sources. So in order to maintain these benefits, you must complete annual registration by the set dates. What are these set dates? Great question. So officially, the annual registration process opened this year on February 12th and will close on May 6th. So all organizations are going to have quite a few months to complete this process. Remember, you cannot begin annual registration until you've completed elections for the following year. So once you have your officers for the 2024-2025 year, then you're ready to start the process. You have to wait until your elections to actually begin the annual registration process. According to policy, all organizations should be completing their elections no later than 1 month before finals. This ensures that we have proper transitions and that you can complete this process in time. The annual registration form will actually close on May 6th, 2024. So the following day after May 6th, our student assistants are going to be sending out suspension notification emails to all RSOs that did not complete annual registration on schedule. If you are a suspended organization, you are going to be frozen for the entire summer. But this means that you're going to have until September 2024 to actually still complete registration and lift your suspension and get back where you need to be. Now, if you do not complete this by September 2024, you are going to become an inactive organization. And if your organization becomes inactive, it's going to have to follow all of the steps as listed within the chartering process, otherwise known as the process to start a brand new RSO again. We don't want you to have to completely recharter your organization, so please be sure to get everything done by the deadline. And if you don't get it done by the deadline, be sure to complete it before the return window is up and you become an inactive organization. Who is involved in the AR process? Each year, only 3 individuals are needed to complete the AR process. All of these individuals are required positions that all RSOs must have, so it really shouldn't be too hard to find these people. Your president, finance officer, and advisor will each complete their own separate form within the process. The president is actually expected to complete 2 forms. This includes the annual registration form itself, and the finance officer and advisor are only expected to complete 1 form. Together, this is your entire annual registration process. Now, let's actually go over the required steps of completing the annual registration process. The first step is attending the Officer Onboarding Training, so congrats, you've done it. This step is actually required for both the president and finance officer, and the next step is to complete the training follow-up form. So this form is required to receive credit for the training, and this step is required for both the president and the finance officer. At the end of the Officer Onboarding Training, you will receive more information on how you could potentially find this form. The third step is to complete the annual registration form located in your Engage portal. Now, we'll show you how to access this in just a moment, but please note that this step can only be completed by your president. In fact, you won't even be able to see the AR form if you are not listed as the president in your Engage portal. The AR form asks for basic information about your organization, including current leadership, constitution, and more. The fourth step is the advisor form. This step is required for and can only be completed by your faculty staff advisor. So please be sure you do not submit this form on their behalf, but rather share the link with them for easy access. We also recommend setting up a time to discuss renewing your advisor relationship as well in case any details may have changed. Finally, accepting terms and conditions. Once you are officially listed as the president and finance officer in your organization and your registration is approved, you will receive a notification asking you to complete your terms and conditions. Terms and conditions allow you to agree to the terms and timeline of your role. When you receive this notification and engage, please be sure to complete the terms. And if any point throughout this process you are wondering where your organization is at, you are welcome to use the 2024 annual registration tracking sheet at bit.ly/RSO2024. Please note this link is case sensitive. Here you can check your progress and view which forms have already been processed. Please note that we do process these forms completely manually in the Center for Student Engagement, so while tracking may not be updated once you immediately submit, know that it will be as soon as we are able to process it and get to your form. We have a lot of forms coming in, so sometimes it takes us just a bit to get everything into the sheet. To access the annual registration form, RSO presidents will log on to Engage, navigate to their organization, and select Manage. Once the new page appears, you will see a blue button that reads Re-register my organization. This is the annual registration form. Once you click the button that says Re-register this organization, you will be able to begin the form. Please note that it may populate with your organization's information as it is already. You are welcome to update this if things have changed, but please be sure to leave your organization name the same. To help each of you complete the annual registration process, we've gathered a few QR codes that each have unique tutorials. Starting with adding members and changing officers, these two tutorials are very important for keeping an updated Engage roster. In order to have accurate data on RSOs, RSO leaders must make sure their rosters are accurate. So follow the QR codes in the blue and the pink to learn more about how to do this. Next, as mentioned earlier, after your annual registration form is approved, you will be expected to complete something called Terms and Conditions. This is something that each finance officer and president will have to log into Engage to accept. This is basically just you accepting responsibility for your position officially. So follow the QR code in the green box to learn more about this process. And finally, throughout this entire process, our student assistants will be tracking everything. You can follow the QR code in the yellow box to regularly check your annual registration process and see what requirements you have left. Policy overview. Let's talk about some important policies that guide your RSO. Because RSOs receive benefits and resources, it's important to note that your recognition is only official if you agree to comply with all applicable GT policies and procedures. So let's actually look over some of these policies now and a few others that would be beneficial for your RSO to know. Starting with the Code of Conduct. This code educates all members of the Georgia Tech community about the Institute's expectations and students' rights and creates a standard by which students are expected to conduct themselves for the purpose of establishing an environment that's conducive to academic excellence. You agree to this code as a student, and it's important to know that you are also expected to uphold this code as an RSO as well. Moving on to the alcohol and other drugs policy. In accordance with federal and state laws, all students are prohibited from engaging in the unlawful use, possession, manufacture, distribution, dispensation, and sale of alcoholic beverages, controlled substances, and other drugs. RSOs regularly find themselves utilizing the alcohol and other drugs policy when hosting events, programs, or meetings with alcohol. The policy actually includes an event planning form that we're going to talk about soon. So I'll circle back to this in a moment when we get to event planning policies. Next on the list is the Equal Opportunity, Non-Discrimination, and Anti-Harassment Policy. Georgia Tech prohibits discrimination, and this policy outlines our commitment to this prohibition. This policy applies to the entire Georgia Tech community, including invited guests. Please be sure to familiarize yourself with this policy if you haven't already, especially considering it is a required element in each RSO constitution. The youth programs policy is intended to help those with youth programs to ensure the safety and well-being of non-student minors both on and off campus. Part of this policy requires some events and meetings and activities involving people under the age of 18 to be registered through the Institute. Please check out this policy and see if it may apply to your RSO and if you need to get any events registered before beginning. Next is hazing. The hazing policy applies to all RSOs. Remember, hazing is illegal and is against Georgia Tech policies. Hazing can happen in any organization, and as leaders, you should be aware of this. Hazing is actually defined as any intentional, negligent, or reckless action or situation which causes another pain, embarrassment, ridicule, or harassment, regardless of the willingness of the participant. Please read our full policy to learn more about activities that are considered hazing and consequences for being caught hazing. Next up is contracts. When it comes to contract, it's really important to know that neither Georgia Tech students nor advisors have the authority to just sign agreements on behalf of Georgia Tech. Should a Georgia Tech student or advisor sign any agreement for their RSO, you're actually signing in your own individual capacity, and you can be personally liable for failure to perform as agreed and for any breaches or omissions that may occur under the agreement. This is a very important understanding to have, as you could be taking on unnecessary liability in your role by signing contracts on behalf of your RSO. Moving on to more event planning minded policies, starting with fronting. Fronting is when an RSO makes a reservation for an off campus organization, person, or personal event with no authentic connection to the RSO or the Institute. This means you are essentially reserving space for an external source while using your RSO benefits of free or reduced cost for the space. This is not allowed, and there are consequences for fronting, especially depending on the severity of the incident. Using external vendors. While we encourage RSOs to collaborate with vendors off campus, it is the responsibility of each RSO to ensure the external vendor is compliant to conduct business on Georgia Tech's campus. This means that if you are bringing a vendor to Tech for an event or program, you should always be submitting a valid business license and certificate of insurance, as this is required for all external vendors conducting business on Georgia Tech's campus. Next up is the food policy. If you're hosting events with food, listen up. For food purchases under $600, any licensed food service provider may be used. This means that if you're spending less than $600 on food, Georgia Tech does not really care what source this comes from, as long as you're still following all of the other food policy guidelines. Now, for food purchases over $600, only tech catering may be used for events inside of certain buildings. For example, the Student Center, Exhibition Hall, and West Village. Please note, different buildings do have different rules. So if you're working in a different building other than these, check their rules as well just to be sure. And note, in rare cases, catering will approve outside vendors for over $600, but this request must be submitted well in advance and will only be granted in very special circumstances. Back to the alcohol policy. So I mentioned earlier that the policy includes an event planning form. This is actually because alcohol may be served at Georgia Tech events on campus, but only with prior approval from the Office of the President. So organizers of Georgia Tech events on campus where alcohol is to be served have to submit an alcohol approval form prior to the event. So if you're hosting an event, we will be checking for your alcohol approval form before approving it. So make sure you're getting that submitted on time. Collecting cash. So if your organization is ever hosting fundraisers or collecting cash, this policy will be important for you to know. Per GTPD, when any cash or funds are collected anywhere on campus, it's required that at least 2 individuals from the organization be present and that the cash be stored in a covered container. For any more information on the requirements for collecting funds at an event, you can contact Captain Hill of GTPD at the email listed. Also along the lines of fundraisers is bake sales. Bake sales come with a lot of rules, okay? Considering you are preparing food for others to eat. The rules for bake sales are listed below and can be read fully in the Student and Campus Event Center's food policy. Please be sure to check this out if you are ever conducting bake sales. Displays and exhibits. If your RSO ever hosts displays or exhibits that require interaction with the public, please know that you are responsible for ensuring a Georgia Tech community member is present at all times, as your RSO is considered responsible for the event. This means you must have a representative from the sponsoring organizations at all times. Chalking. Chalking on sidewalks is a fun and creative way to get the word out about events. However, we do have some rules on this process. So while you can chalk on any of the campus sidewalks, please know that chalking is not allowed on buildings, stairways, walls, fountains, or any other surfaces, okay? All chalking must also be at least 20 feet from any entryways of buildings and not under any overhead obstruction that would prevent rain from washing it away. Also, chalk sprays, markers, stencils, or paint, any of that is not permitted. And last but not least, the flyers policy. So, flyers, placards, postcards, signs, and other written or visual communications should only be placed on public bulletin boards or locations that are clearly designated for posting. If it's not clear that you can post a flyer there, please do not post one. Flyers should not be attached to doors, windows, walls, hung from light fixtures, trees, appliances. If it does not look obvious that a flyer is allowed to be there, please ask first, just to be sure. While I gave you a short rundown of these policies, you can always get a full deep dive by visiting the policy library and learning more about these policies and others and how they might affect your RSO. So scan the QR code here or learn more at policylibrary.gatech.edu. Should any RSO violate the policies previously mentioned, this could constitute a complaint against the RSO or student for violation of non-academic misconduct. If reported, this complaint would be sent to the Office of Student Integrity, who would further investigate the incident. In cases where a student is found responsible for non-academic misconduct, students are given sanctions. Where deemed appropriate, some matters may have the option of being resolved via informal resolution. You can learn more about the non-academic misconduct process within the Office of Student Integrity by scanning the QR code to the left. RSO finances. Requesting and managing RSO funds. One of the main benefits of being a registered student organization is having access to various funding sources. If you look at the chart here, you'll see that I've outlined the timeline of requesting funding from different sources. For example, in the second column, all funding sources except for SGA budgets can be requested in both semesters as available. Moving on to the third column, you can also see how to apply for each of these sources. While many of our finance processes are applied to through the Engage portal, some processes, such as Buzz Funds, use a separate website and form. Feel free to use this chart as a reference in the future for what kind of funding is available to you and when you need it. An important note about on campus funding at Tech is that most of these funds are completely managed by different offices and individuals. This means they may be operating on different timelines and application processes than each other. If you visit our webpage, which can be seen here at studentengagement.godtech.edu, you can learn more about each of the funding processes and visit their websites. From here, you can reach out to each source directly for more information on their procedures if needed. This webpage also holds valuable tutorials for applying for SGA funding and submitting SOFO reimbursements. Scan the QR code in the bottom left to learn more and visit the website. Now, one of the main ways to apply for many of our popular funding sources is on Engage through your RSO portal. To apply for the funding process on Engage, you will follow the steps shown here. Once you are managing your organization, you will then select Finances. You will navigate to the Budget portion and then select Create Request, Create Budget Request. Here, all of our processes will appear and you can select which process you'd like to apply for. Once you select the correct process, you can begin filling in the details as they apply. Another one of the benefits of being a registered student organization is having access to your very own accountant from the Student Organization Finance Office. RSOs are assigned accountants based on the letter of their organization name. Choose your organization's appropriate SOFO contact person from the list shown below based on your org name, but do not consider the words GT or Yellow Jacket in your name. And if you're a sport club, just consider the sport name itself. Now, the Student Organization Finance Office, other known as SOFO, primary functions are to disperse funds for student organizations and to assist with the fiscal management of the following accounts: SGA budgets, SGA bills, custodial funds, Georgia Tech Foundation funds, and the Parents Fund for student leadership and student life. If you're using any of these resources, you will be interacting with SOFO. SOFO also regularly hosts trainings for finance officers to learn more about their role and certain processes. Finance officers, please be on the lookout for important communications from the finance office. RSOs also have the option of working with their assigned SOFO accountant to open an on-campus bank account. There are two kinds of on-campus bank accounts you can open: custodial and foundation accounts. Funds that organizations collect from membership dues, tickets, or fundraising sales can be deposited into an organization's custodial account. Think of this like your typical checking account. However, since custodial accounts are hosted through the Institute, they do have some restrictions on how they can be spent since they are state funds. Now, a foundation account is slightly different. Funds received from Institute sponsorships, corporate or private donations, or gifts will be deposited into a student organization's foundation account. This is to ensure that gift receipts are issued as they need to be. Foundation accounts are less restricted than custodial accounts as they are hosted by the Georgia Tech Foundation and are not state funds. If you're ever interested in setting up one of these accounts, you'll need to do a few things. First, make sure your organization is updated and engaged and that you are in good standing with the Center for Student Engagement. 2, submit your request via email to your proper SOFO staff member, including your organization name to be used as the account name, and include contact information with your name, phone number, email address of your president and your treasurer. Now, for custodial accounts, this is all you'll need to do. But for foundation accounts, your RSO will also need to include an explanation of how the funds will be used and why you need the account. A donation, check, or cash of any size will also be needed to establish a foundation account. Once you do open a foundation account, though, you'll be able to actually fundraise through Georgia Tech's online giving portal. Here, donors will list your RSO name next to their donation, and SOFO accountants will work to ensure the money is deposited into your foundation account. Normal processing time is 5 to 7 days for opening an account with SOFO. You will also be contacted via email once your account request has been established. Now, you may notice that I used the term on-campus bank account earlier, and I'm sure many of you know that opening a bank account off campus is an option. However, I'm here to let you know the pros and cons of this choice. While RSOs can go to any bank and choose to open a bank account off campus, there are a few things to consider when choosing this option. So first, off-campus bank accounts must be tied to either an individual's tax ID or a business entity's EIN. This means your organization will either have to apply through the IRS for an EIN as a nonprofit organization or tie the bank account to someone's social security number. Using sensitive information such as this to open an account does not only carry more risk for the individual or group involved, but it also does make transitioning the information quite difficult. So if you open an off-campus bank account, you will have to transition the EIN and relevant documents each year. If you choose to attach the account to an individual, That individual will need to be involved every year the account is in use, even if they are graduated, as it is directly tied to their social security number. If you don't transfer your EIN to the next officer or current member, then you might not have access to your bank account or any funds in your accounts in the future, which would defeat the entire purpose of opening one. So, both of these things, whether you're using an EIN or a tax ID, make an off campus bank account less attractive than an on campus one. Now, the one major benefit of opening an off campus bank account would be the ease of access or the use of funds. So, with an off campus bank account, you would manage your funds directly and be able to purchase things through your account, potentially with a debit card, a lot simpler. On campus bank accounts are managed by SOFO staff, and so your control is more limited over your accounts and your money as they are the ones handling it. Some of the benefits of an on campus bank account include tax free purchases, purchase protection, contract support, automatic transitions for your leaders, and donor friendly accounts. But the one downside is that many of your purchases would be made via our social accountants rather than yourself. So, just there being any steps in between it all can sometimes be a barrier for organization, and it can make the process more cumbersome. However, in the long run, opening an on campus bank account is going to be a lot more simpler and beneficial for your organization to maintain throughout transitions, which is why we always recommend on campus bank accounts, and we do not recommend RSOs open off campus bank accounts on their own. For any more information on this process, please reach out to your SOFO accountant as described in the previous slide. So, finally, here are a few different places you can visit for additional finance information as well. Event planning, the keys to successful initiatives. One of the most important parts of hosting events is reserving space. There are many places that you can reserve space on campuses in RSO. This includes the Student Center, classrooms, exhibition hall, Academy of Medicine, West Village, outdoor areas, and table spaces on campus. But there are a few steps that you have to follow first. The first step to reserve space is to ensure you have the correct access. RSO leaders can only reserve space if they have the appropriate position or access on Engage. To give an RSO leader reservation privileges, they will need to be assigned the position of Room Reservation Access in your Engage portal. You can use that tutorial we shared earlier for assigning positions to navigate this process. Once you are assigned the role, it typically takes the event system 24 hours at most to recognize your new privileges. Once granted, you will see a lot more options appear on GT events. After assigning yourself the correct role and access, you will then log into GT Events and reserve open space. GT Events is the campus event management system, or EMS, that we use here. Using your Georgia Tech credentials, you'll log in at gtevents.gotech.edu to reserve a space. To reserve a space on behalf of your RSO, just be sure to select the RSO templates on the reservation screen. You can also book space from the location tabs of GT Events as well. After you've reserved your space, it's time to start spreading the word. Using the events tool in your Engage portal, create a single or recurring event to promote this event or meeting to students. And bonus, when you build your event in Engage, you can also add your event automatically to the campus calendar, weekly digest, and daily digest. And finally, once it's the big day, you also want to take attendance. So many RSO officers actually overlook the power of keeping attendance records for their organization. You can use one of the 7 different ways in Engage to track attendance at your events or meetings, whether it's manually, through a buzz card swipe, a QR code scanner, or more. You can use this data in Engage to send thank you messages, follow-up emails, and make data-informed decisions for your next event. For a complete step-by-step breakdown of how to reserve space in each of these areas, scan the QR code to visit studentcenter.gotech.edu. Here, you will find step-by-step instructions with photos on how to operate the Georgia Tech event system to reserve space. Once you plan your program, hopefully your next step is to advertise them. There are many options for advertising for free or reduced costs across tech for RSOs. Below are just a few popular options. So the Campus Recreation Center offers digital signage advertising. The Student and Campus Event Centers offer digital signage, banner displays, flyers, and tabling. The Technique student newspaper offers full and partial page ads. GT Transit offers advertising on Georgia Tech transit vehicles, and Rec Radio offers program underwriting and PSAs to be aired live. So if you're interested in using any of these advertising options, scan the QR code directly to the left to learn more about submitting advertisements to each of these sources, as they are separate. Another option for RSOs is campus digital signage. Have you all ever noticed the digital TV monitors set up across tech in various academic buildings, classrooms, and campus event centers? These screens are actually great ways for you to get the word out about your events. With digital signage offered across campus, you can actually tailor which spaces your ad is showing in to better reach your target audience. Depending on the nature of your event, it may not be appropriate for every venue, but this list has quite a few to consider. So scan the QR code directly to the right to learn more about submitting advertisements to each of these sources, as they are also separate. One of the final things I want to talk about in this section is about risk. So, assessing the risk of events and programs is really crucial for registered student organizations for a few different reasons. The first is safety of your participants. So, the primary concern of all of us is the safety and well being of all participants of your programs. And by identifying potential risks, RSOs can implement measures to mitigate them, reducing the likelihood of accidents or harm that could occur on your RSO's watch. Second, legal liability. If an incident occurs during an event or program, your organization may be held legally responsible. Conducting a risk assessment allows organizations to identify potential hazards and take steps to minimize these risks, thus reducing the likelihood of legal issues. Three, protecting reputation. A poorly managed event or program that results in accidents or incidents can damage your RSO's reputation. By proactively assessing these risks, you can demonstrate your commitment to the well being of your members, participants, and enhance your RSO's reputation. Five, financial considerations. Accidents or incidents during events can lead to financial repercussions, including potential lawsuits, medical expenses, or damage to property. Conducting a risk assessment helps RSO anticipate and plan for potential financial risks and ensures that they have appropriate insurance coverage and resources to address any unforeseen issues. And finally, compliance with Georgia Tech policy. As I mentioned earlier, Georgia Tech has many regulations and policies in place regarding event planning and safety standards. By conducting risk assessments, RSOs ensure compliance with these regulations, reducing the risk of disciplinary action or sanctions from the institution. In conclusion, assessing the risk of events and programs is essential for registered student organizations. It also demonstrates a great level of responsible leadership and a commitment to creating a safe and enjoyable environment for all involved. Here are a few questions that we've created to ensure your organization is actively assessing the risk in your events and programs. Our final section is RSO management. Incoming officers, this one's for you. One of the most important parts of being an RSO leader is updating your RSO roster. This includes removing old members, adding new ones, and updating outdated leadership positions. When you get in your role, you want to make sure that you're looking at your Engage roster and making changes where needed. If you see members that are graduated or are no longer a part of your organization, remove them from your roster. If you see members with new or different leadership positions, update them. This will ensure that you are keeping accurate membership records for your organization. Additionally, we regularly receive contact requests in the CSE for specific RSOs. If your leadership is not updated and engaged, you will not be aware of these specific outreach requests. Finally, most RSO leaders are publicly visible on their Engage page, and many times our students will use this information to connect with RSOs they may be interested in joining. If your RSO roster is out of date, students may be attempting to contact you with no luck. So please, make sure you are keeping your roster information updated to ensure that interested individuals can contact you when needed. At the minimum, you should always have at least the required officer positions of president, finance officer, and advisor listed in your Engage portal. Scan the QR code in the yellow box to find our tutorial on maintaining your Engage roster, including updating positions to ensure this doesn't happen to you. I'm sure you've heard about Engage enough in this training alone to at least wonder why it is so important for you to use and why I keep mentioning it. So, for context, Engage is actually a common platform used at many universities and colleges across the nation. Engage offers student organizations everywhere a really powerful suite of tools and features that help them continuously improve and grow and develop, which is why it's such a popular tool. And so, if you're not bought in already to what Engage can do for you, I have a few reasons that you should consider leveraging Engage to support your RSO. The first one I want to mention is streamlined communications. So, Engage provides a centralized platform for all communications. All of our student organizations live here and it allows all of our RSOs to easily disseminate information, updates, announcements to their members. All of our students are being told to go here, so it's great if you're posting here too. This streamlined communication channel is reducing the likelihood of messages that get overlooked or lost. Next is event management. Engage offers robust event management features, including tools for event promotion, including access to the campus calendar, daily and weekly digest, registration, and also attendance and RSVP tracking. Organizations can use Engage to efficiently plan and execute their events, manage RSVPs, track participation, all of which will in turn enhance your ability to organize successful and well attended events. Next, membership management. So, as you know, Engage does enable organizations to maintain comprehensive membership databases. It'll help you manage membership profiles, roles, your leaders, engagement levels. It makes it all around easier for organizations to track your involvement, communicate with specific segments of your organization, and also identify opportunities for member growth or development. And then finally, a Georgia Tech favorite, data analytics. The platform will provide valuable insights through data analytics tools if you are using it. So the platform does allow student organizations to track the platform does allow student organizations to track Finally, one of Georgia Tech's favorites, data analytics. Engage does provide valuable insights through data analytics tools, allowing student organizations to track metrics such as event attendance, member engagement, and participation trends. By leveraging these analytics, organizations and RSO leaders can make data driven decisions, refine their strategies, and optimize your efforts to better meet the needs and preferences of your members. Now, beyond these very broad reasons alone, you can see from the training already that Engage is really integrated into many institute processes as well, such as annual registration, finances, and this campus wide advertising that I keep mentioning. Being aware of how to navigate the platform and use it to your advantage will be a leg up for your RSO and their visibility. To learn more about Engage and review key tutorials, scan the QR code in the top left corner to view our website. Now, we've talked about a lot of things today, as there are a lot of things for an RSO leader to know. And since we know you may be overwhelmed with all of this information, we've turned it into a simple checklist to help you transition as a new officer. Now, please note, none of these steps are required, but they are highly recommended as we feel that they will set you up for a good year with your RSO. So let's look over them. 1. Meet with your faculty and staff advisor. This is to help understand their role, participation, and past relationship with your RSO. 2. Review your organization's constitution, including the duties for your new role, within your Engage portal. Each RSO's constitution can be located in the Documents tab of your Engage portal. 3. Make sure your officers are listed in your Engage roster. As mentioned earlier, we use this roster to send out important information, so keeping this list updated is crucial for officers. 4. Add room reservation access for officers who can book space on behalf of your RSO. 5. Check in on your org's finances by meeting with your designated accountant in the Student Organization Finance Office, SOFO. Visit SOFO's website, find your accountant, and reach out with any questions you may have about your RSO's financial history. 6. Add your events and programs to Engage to easily promote them across campus. Starting to build your calendar programs? Don't forget to advertise them on Engage. Use the events tool in your organization's portal to build events and advertise them across campus. And lastly, RSVP for student leadership opportunities hosted by the CSC. If you visit our Engage portal, you can always see what events we are hosting and what's going on in the center. Keep an eye out here for more information on professional development and RSO support workshops. And please note, while this list may seem robust, we guarantee that you'll be starting your year off right if you follow these steps to start. So let's just get a bit more information about some of these events that we have designed for RSO leaders. The Officer Experiential Path. For both our new and returning leaders, we do offer specialized events just for you. So, starting out in the fall semester and moving into the spring, first we have the Big Buzz. The Big Buzz is an annual student leadership social where only RSO officers are invited. This takes place in August, and at the Big Buzz, you can mingle and meet other student leaders, staff, and faculty here at Tech. The Big Buzz is designed to help you start building your network as soon as you get to campus in the fall. Next up is the Leader Summit. The Leader Summit is an annual leadership development and training conference historically hosted by the Center for Student Engagement and the Student Government Association. The topics discussed at the Student Leader Summit change every year, as does the theme. This past year, we discussed RSO finances, Title IX, event reservations, cultural leadership, and implementing inclusivity in student organizations. This event typically takes place around September or October, and it does have an attendance cap, so be on the lookout for when the RSVP form comes out. Next up in the spring, we have the Student Leader Retreat, taking place in January or February of the spring semester. For nearly 20 years, the Student Leader Retreat has provided a space for student leaders to bond while contributing to meaningful change at Tech. And finally, the Center for Student Engagement offers a wide variety of workshops and programs to help you grow your skills as a leader within your RSO and beyond. As I mentioned earlier, these opportunities are ongoing, so stay posted by keeping an eye on Engage, the newsletter, our website, and the weekly digest. Staying updated. As an officer or leader in your organization, it's important that you stay updated on opportunities and information related to your RSO. You can use the following options to stay in the loop. We made it. This is the end of the 2024 Officer Onboarding Training. Before we go, don't forget, you must complete the post-training form in order to receive credit for annual registration. Upon completion of the training, follow the link displayed on your screen to complete a follow-up form that will ask you for some additional information to confirm your attendance. Still have questions about annual registration or being an RSO leader after the webinar? Please don't hesitate to reach out to us with questions. You can email us at engage@godtech.edu, visit us online at studentengagement.godtech.edu, or come visit us in the John Lewis Student Center. You can also give us a call at 404-894-3458. Congratulations on your new role, and thank you for attending the 2024 Officer Onboarding Training as part of the 2024 annual registration process.